Hey y'all, thanks for tuning into another video. This is Carrie Nicole, and we today are going to be talking about the hidden damage in relationships of things like the silent treatment and emotional manipulation. If you want to learn what those are and how to deal with them inside of the relationships that you're in, then you're in the right place. So what is emotional manipulation? What are some tactics that people use to emotionally manipulate you? Well, it really is anything that someone uses to try to get you to do what they need you to do, preying on your emotional state to make it happen. So it's using things like guilt, shame, blame, all of these things in order to get you to do something that they want you to do. And oftentimes these things can come from the nicest people that you know. So if you're like, oh, well, all emotional manipulation has to come from, mean people who are ugly and have hearts that are, just trying to annihilate the character and the world of everyone, that is often not true, because people pleasing in itself is a form of emotional manipulation. It's trying to get somebody to see you in a certain light so that they'll think, oh, well, she always does the things for me, so I have to do the things for her. So they're like indebted to you because you're being a people pleaser. It's going to look like withholding communication inside of a relationship. So giving you the silent treatment, saying that they need space, but not really giving you a time where they're going to come back and actually have that conversation with you. So kind of leaving you sitting in the dark. All of those are forms of emotional manipulation. And what those types of withholding communication do is make you sit and wonder what you did wrong, how you can make it better, and to draft and create a strategy for creating peace. And that's what the person wants you to do. They want you to sit and ferment in a space where you feel guilty and a space where you want to create the peace so that they don't have to do anything to make the relationship better. Another way is guilt tripping. So when people say things like, after all I've done for you, guilt trip. When people say things like, but that person is your insert title here, guilt tripping. When people say things like, but I did this for you, I can't believe that you would treat me this way, right? All of that is guilt tripping. It's trying to make you feel a level of guilt to convince you to do the thing that they want you to do. Another one is playing on your emotions to control your behavior. So if they know that a certain thing sparks emotion in you, and this is very customized and unique to the person that you are, but they'll know the things that trigger you, they'll know the things that spark you to want to do more. So they might say things like you're a bad dad or you're a bad mom. That's going to make you want to do more in that area, even if they're not doing anything close to what you're doing. They may say things like you're confrontational and you're not easy to get along with, because they know that it's important for you to be somebody who's cooperative and collaborative. So then you'll give in to their requests because they know that that's important to you. So when people play on your emotions to try to control the behavior, they're either trying to trigger something that they know is important to you. Sometimes and oftentimes they'll use tears. So they'll cry because they know that when they cry, they get their way. This is where the bait and switch will come in too. So they'll bait you into high conflict. They'll get you out of your norm. So normally you're a very peaceful person. They'll get you out of your norm. So you're elevated emotionally. Maybe you're yelling. Maybe you're talking in a way that you would never communicate before. And then they come back down and they're like, why are you yelling? Why are you so frustrated right now? Because they know that they baited you, they got you angry, and then they switched it and they brought their emotional level down so that they could say that you were doing something wrong. A lot of times people will do that to get their way, especially when they want to try to guilt you into giving them their way, because now you feel bad for being emotionally dysregulated. These behaviors, when someone does this to you, the first thing it does is erode your self-esteem based on what they're saying, because they're probably going to be saying some nasty things inside of that commentary, but also based on how they say it to you. It's like, well, maybe I am all these things that they're saying about me, or maybe I should feel guilty. Like, I'm a horrible person. Like, I just need to create the peace in the situation. The other thing is that it causes anxiety. Like, you're walking on eggshells because you feel like if you make one false move, you're going to stand on or step on a landmine and like everything is going to blow to crap. And that's because they've designed it that way so that you're so emotionally attached to what they need from you. You're so manipulated by them emotionally that you're afraid to even make a move. And now you have anxiety all the time around what might they say, or what might they think, or is this going to make them angry, or I don't want to do it that way because that might trigger them, etc. It also harms your mental health because you're constantly questioning who you are. You're constantly questioning your motives and your intentions. You're constantly comparing what you know to be true about yourself, what God says is true about you, to what these people are saying about you. And you don't recognize what they're doing as manipulation because you just want to see the good in people. And so it does a full hectic commotion in your brain. And because your brain is like, well, I know who I am. I know who God says I am, but this person is saying this other thing and we're arguing all the time. So perhaps what they're saying is true is actually true because the proof is in the pudding here in all of these arguments. But they've created that scenario so that your mental health is in a rocky space, and then they can blame it on that. Well, you are depressed. Well, you do have anxiety. Well, you are, heavily emotional or whatever it is. So how do we spot these behaviors or red flags in order to do something about them? Well, one is to notice the inconsistencies in behavior and the lack of reciprocity. So basically, these are the double standards, right? So they might act one certain way when you're doing what they want, and then they change script when you're doing something that they don't necessarily like. And now they're abusive and telling you all the bad things about you. Whereas when you were doing what they wanted, you were the greatest thing since sliced bread. That's an inconsistency in behavior and opinion. And that can be a red flag that you can spot pretty easily. Also, the same rules that they create for you don't apply for them. So that's inconsistency. There's a lack of reciprocity there. It's like, I'm going to only give you these things, but then I'm going to expect you to go miles beyond that for me, and we're going to call it even, which doesn't really sound like an equitable relationship there. Something else that you might spot as a red flag is blame shifting. So that's, again, that bait and switch thing that I was telling you earlier. That's blame shifting. They did something wrong. They now have an emotion because you got upset about it. Their emotion becomes the focal point. They did something wrong. Somehow they blame it on you, that you were the reason why they did that thing. Again, blame shifting. They will not take accountability for what's going on in relationship. They will consistently blame it on you because they know that for them to take accountability, nothing will change because they're self-aware enough to know that they won't change anything because they don't take accountability well. But they know that if they guilt you, that things will change because you change the scenario, you change the piece in the relationship when you're guilted. So they'll do that blame shifting in order for things to change. And then another one is the passive aggressiveness. So you'll notice that they say things like, well, if you would have just done it my way, this wouldn't be happening. Or, and that's a very obvious and blatant passive aggressiveness. But they might say things like, oh, well, that's the way you did it, in order for you to question the way you're doing things. Or they might say things like, well, if you really cared about me, you would have done it the way I suggested. These are all passive aggressive things. It's a lack of ability to communicate because they don't know how. They don't know how to take accountability. They don't know how to communicate well and healthy in a relationship. So they need you to harbor all the feelings of guilt and shame so that you can do something that will change the relationship right now because they don't know how. But what they do know is that if they use those same emotions from when they were 2, when they cried, when they threw temper tantrums, when they had outbursts, when they locked themselves in their room, whatever they did at the time of toddler age to get what they wanted, they know that if they do that with you, then you're going to do the same thing. It worked before, it's working now because they know that they continue to choose people who are easily manipulated because that feeds into their narrative. So what do? How do you respond? Well, here are some things to do. Assert boundaries. Boundaries are magic inside of a relationship. Boundaries are what you do to keep the relationship. They're not what you do to punish the other person. They're not what you do to get rid of the relationship. They're what you do to keep the relationship. Now, if someone steps over them, then you might go into the avenue of, do I need to get rid of this relationship? If you're using them to punish people, then it's not a boundary. But assert boundaries. If the bait and switch is happening, and then they start saying, well, look how emotional you are, you're going to say, what? You know what? You're right. When you do this, and then I do this, I'm going to walk away because I refuse to allow myself to get to that place. Spell it out to them. That's a boundary that I'm setting right now. I will no longer let myself get out of my character in order to respond to you. If you bring something to me and it starts with a shame spiral, I'm going to stop the conversation until we can come back and have a conversation that's not blaming and shaming people in order to get what we need. If you start to speak to me in a negative way, I'm going to shut down that conversation and we can come back to it later. If I don't feel like I'm in an emotional space to have this conversation, I'm going to tell you I need a little bit of time, but I'm going to give you a time that I will come back to you and have the conversation with you and hope that it works for you. It might sound a little bit like, right now I'm not emotionally in a space where I can have this conversation with you. I need a little bit of time. Could we come back in about 30 minutes and have this conversation once I've processed my emotions? Works like a charm, but if people benefit from you not having boundaries, they'll start to push there, and you'll notice that they lay it on thick there because they want, oftentimes when they create these type of situations, when they do the emotional manipulation, it's because they need something and they need you to be near to give it to them. So if somebody who is peaceful by nature is escalated to anger, then obviously they care enough about me. So that gives me a sense of being cared for and being loved, even though we know that it's very far from what love looks like. To that person, that's what it means, especially if that's what they experience as a child. If they need an overabundance of love and showering of affection all the time, they will do anything to get it. It's just like a kid, when they can't get the positive connection, they'll go to the negative behavior to get negative backlash because attention is all they want anyway. Adults will do the same thing, and emotional manipulation is a tactic that they use to get it. So asserting boundaries will help with that. Also confronting it head on. So saying, I feel very frustrated because you're using things like blame and shame to get me into this emotional state, and it feels a little bit like manipulation. Be 100% honest, confront it. No, the last time this happened, you said these things. I set a boundary around them, and you're continuing to say them. I'm no longer willing to have this conversation. Confront it. This feels like you're doing this to get this, and you want me to do this. There's a different way to make this happen. You don't have to manipulate me. Confront it. And the last is, you have to protect your mental health. So if you need space from that situation, take it. You are allowed space. If you need to get out of that situation because it's an ongoing behavior of the inconsistencies, get out of that situation. If you feel like you're being emotionally abused and not just manipulated, this is your permission, even though you don't need permission, to take the path to leaving, because that will never end. People who emotionally manipulate and abuse you, manipulation can be changed because they may not know the error of their ways. But abuse is something that doesn't usually change. If they're being abusive to you, it's an indication that this is not the space for you to be in. So if this message resonated with you, please reach out. I would love to help you one-on-one. If this is something that you can resonate with and you know that you have people who can resonate with it as well, please like and subscribe to this channel, follow me on all socials, and share this video, because we know that knowledge gained and kept to ourselves is selfish, but shared with the world could just be the catalyst that they need to break free from the bondage that they're in. And we just want people to be out here living their best free lives. And this is a way to do it, to spread knowledge about what's keeping them in bondage. Thank you guys for tuning in, and I'll see you again next time.